At the altar, he stepped on my dress train, ripping it in front of the elite. "This pregnant beggar came for handouts at my wedding." The bride laughed. I didn't cry. I just signaled the head of security. That signal would cost my son everything he thought he had.
Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
My grandson, Oliver, was still in my arms, his small hands gripping my torn dress. He was 3 years old, confused by the laughter, confused by the way his uncle Derek had just humiliated his grandmother in front of 200 guests at the Magnolia Grand Hotel. My hotel. The ballroom was decorated with 10,000 white roses. I had approved the order myself 3 weeks ago, not knowing it was for my own son's wedding. The crystal chandeliers I had imported from Vienna 12 years ago cast a warm glow over the elite of Savannah. The marble floors my late husband Harold had chosen reflected the afternoon light streaming through the French windows. Every inch of this place was mine. Every napkin, every fork, every thread in the carpet. And my son Derek was standing at the altar in a rented tuxedo, calling me a beggar. "Security to the grand ballroom," I said quietly into my earpiece. "Code Magnolia." Marcus Webb's voice came back immediately. "Copy that, Mrs. Bennett. 2 minutes." The bride was still laughing. Vanessa Cole, 28 years old, blonde highlights, a dress that cost more than most people's yearly salary. She had her hand over her mouth, but her eyes were bright with cruel pleasure. "Derek, darling, you should have warned me your mother was so desperate," she said. I would have left some scraps from the rehearsal dinner. The crowd tittered. 200 of Savannah's finest, dressed in their Sunday best, watching a 58-year-old woman in a torn dress hold a toddler while her own son mocked her. I looked at Derek, my firstborn. The boy I had carried for 9 months, nursed for 2 years, put through private school on a housekeeper's salary. The boy who had left me 8 years ago when I refused to sell this hotel to fund his startup dreams. He didn't recognize me. Or if he did, he didn't care. "Someone get this woman out of here," Derek said. "This is a private event." "Derek." The voice came from behind me. Tyler, my younger son, pushing through the crowd. "Derek, what are you doing?" "Tyler?" Derek's face showed the first crack of uncertainty. Why are you here?" "I work here." Tyler took Oliver from my arms gently. "I'm the assistant manager, and this woman you just called a beggar?" He paused. "She's our mother." The room went silent. "That's impossible," Vanessa said. "The owner of this hotel is Ruth Bennett. She's a recluse. No one's seen her in years. You're looking at her," Tyler said. Derek's face went pale. He looked at me, really looked at me. For the first time in 8 years. I saw the moment he recognized the woman who had raised him alone after his father died when he was 10. The woman who had worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. The woman who had inherited this hotel from Harold's estate and rebuilt it from a failing bed and breakfast into the most prestigious venue in Georgia. "Mom," his voice cracked. I didn't answer. The lights in the ballroom flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, I heard the PA system crackle to life. "Attention all guests. The hotel owner orders the groom and all guests to vacate the premises immediately. This event has been terminated. Security will escort you to the exits." The emergency lights came on, casting everything in a dim red glow. I could see Derek's face now, twisted with shock and anger. Vanessa was clutching his arm, her perfect makeup suddenly looking garish in the emergency lighting. "You can't do this," Derek said. "We have a contract. We paid for this venue." "You paid with a stolen credit card," I said quietly. "Your Aunt Lorraine's card. She reported it this morning." That was a lie. Lorraine had willingly given Derek the card, part of their scheme to use my hotel without my knowledge. But I had proof of the fraud. Emails, text messages, bank statements. Lorraine had been siphoning money from me for years, and Derek had been helping her. Marcus Webb appeared at my side with 4 security guards. "Mrs. Bennett, we're ready to clear the room. Start with the groom and bride. They can collect their belongings from the service entrance." "Mom, wait." Derek stepped toward me. "We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." The time for talking was 8 years ago, when you told me I was a selfish old woman who cared more about a building than her own son. I straightened my torn dress. I cared about this building because it was all I had left of your father, because it was supposed to be your inheritance, yours and Tyler's. But you wanted it sold. You wanted to cash out and disappear. I was young. I was stupid. You were 24, old enough to know better, old enough to know that when I said no, I meant no. I looked at Vanessa, and old enough to pick your partners more carefully. Vanessa's face had gone from shocked to calculating. I could see her mind working, reassessing, trying to figure out how to salvage this situation. Mrs. Bennett, she said, her voice suddenly sweet. I had no idea Derek's mother was the owner of this beautiful hotel. He never told me. If you had known, you never would have called me a pregnant beggar. I held up Oliver, who had fallen asleep against Tyler's shoulder. This is my grandson, Tyler's son, the only family I have left who hasn't tried to rob me. Tyler has a son? Derek looked at his brother. You never told me. You never asked. You never called. You never came home for Christmas or Thanksgiving or Mom's birthday. Tyler's voice was hard. You showed up here to have your wedding, and you didn't even bother to check who owned the venue. Lorraine said. Lorraine lied. She's been lying to you for years. She's been lying to both of us. Tyler looked at me. Mom, should I tell him? I shook my head. Not yet. Let him figure it out on his own. The security guards were moving through the crowd now, politely but firmly directing guests toward the exits. Some were protesting, others were filming on their phones. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. The Magnolia Grand Hotel, the scene of the most spectacular wedding disaster in Savannah history. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them share their videos and their hot takes. The truth would come out eventually. The truth always did. Mrs. Bennett. Marcus touched my elbow. The bride's family is refusing to leave. They're demanding to speak with you. Tell them I'll be in my office in 30 minutes, after I've changed out of this dress. I walked toward the service entrance, Tyler beside me with Oliver in his arms. Behind us, I could hear Derek calling my name, his voice getting more desperate with each syllable. I didn't look back. In the elevator, Tyler finally spoke. Are you okay? I will be. That was brutal. What he said. What she said. I've survived worse. I touched my grandson's sleeping face. I survived losing your father. I survived Lorraine's betrayal. I survived 8 years of wondering if my oldest son was alive or dead. He's going to fight back. You know that, right? He's going to try to turn this around. Let him try. The elevator doors opened onto the private floor. My floor. The penthouse suite that Harold and I had designed together 30 years ago, when this hotel was just a dream and a lot of debt. I have every receipt, every email, every text message. I have proof of everything Lorraine did and everything Derek helped her do. What about Vanessa? Vanessa is the least of my problems. I unlocked the door to my suite. She's a social climber who thought she was marrying money. When she finds out Derek is broke, that he's been living off Lorraine's stolen credit cards for years, she'll disappear faster than the free champagne. Tyler set Oliver down on the couch. The boy stirred but didn't wake. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. About Derek. About why he really came back. I sat down in my favorite chair, the one Harold had bought me for our 20th anniversary, and looked at my son. I'm listening. Derek is in debt. Serious debt. He owes money to people who don't accept payment plans. Tyler pulled out his phone and showed me a screen. I've been tracking him for 2 years, ever since Lorraine started making those weird transfers from your accounts. I looked at the numbers, the names, the dates. How much does he owe? $2.3 million. I closed my eyes. $2.3 million. That was almost exactly what Lorraine had stolen from me over the past 5 years. The money she had told me was going to charitable donations, to renovations that never happened, to investments that existed only on paper. He was going to ask me for the money, wasn't he? That's why he came back. That's why he agreed to have the wedding here. I think so. I think Lorraine promised him she could get you to sell the hotel. One last big score before the creditors caught up. I opened my eyes and looked at the photo on my mantel. Harold, young and handsome, standing in front of this hotel on the day we opened. He had been so proud, so certain that we were building something that would last. She almost succeeded, I said quietly. If I hadn't caught the discrepancy in last month's accounts, if I hadn't started digging, but you did, you caught it, and now we have them. I stood up and walked to the window. Below me, the gardens of the Magnolia Grand stretched toward the river, perfectly manicured, blooming with the same flowers Harold had planted 30 years ago. Call Lorraine, I said. Tell her I want to see her. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, in my office. What are you going to do? I'm going to give her a choice, the same choice she never gave me. Tyler nodded and left. I stayed at the window, watching the guests stream out of my hotel, their expensive cars pulling away one by one. My son had called me a pregnant beggar. My sister-in-law had stolen millions from me. My family had tried to destroy everything I had built. But I was still standing. Still the owner of the Magnolia Grand. Still the woman Harold had loved. The woman who had turned grief into empire. Tomorrow, I would begin the work of dismantling my enemies, one by one, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the truth. But tonight, I would hold my grandson, drink a glass of wine, and remember that I had survived worse than this. I always did. Lorraine arrived at exactly 9 o'clock, dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably cost as much as one of my housekeepers made in a month. She walked into my office like she still owned the place, like she hadn't been caught with her hand in the till. Ruth. She sat down without being invited. I assume you want to discuss what happened yesterday. I want to discuss what's been happening for the past 5 years. Her face didn't change. Lorraine had always been good at masks. It was one of the things Harold had warned me about, back when we were first married and his sister had shown up asking for loans she never intended to repay. I don't know what you mean. I opened the folder on my desk and slid it across to her. Bank statements, wire transfers, invoices for services never rendered, supplies never delivered, renovations never completed. 5 years of theft, carefully documented by an accountant I had hired in secret 3 months ago. $4.7 million, I said. That's how much you've stolen from me since Harold died. Lorraine's mask cracked, just for a moment. Then she recovered, smoothing her expression back into something like concern. Ruth, you're confused. You've been under so much stress since Harold passed. These numbers, there must be some mistake. The only mistake was trusting you. I pulled out another document. This is a sworn statement from Maria Gonzalez, your former assistant. The one you fired when she started asking questions about the charitable donations that never made it to charity. Maria was incompetent. Maria kept records, copies of everything. She came to me last month, after she heard I was looking into the accounts. I leaned back in my chair. She was afraid of you, Lorraine. Afraid of what you might do if you found out she was talking. But she was more afraid of staying quiet. Lorraine was silent now, calculating. I could see her running through options, trying to find a way out. What do you want? She finally asked. The truth. All of it. Starting with Derek. Derek is your son. You should ask him yourself. I'm asking you. Because you're the one who's been feeding him money for the past 8 years. You're the one who told him I was a selfish old woman who deserved to be robbed. You're the one who planned that wedding, knowing it would humiliate me in front of everyone I know. Lorraine smiled. It was a cold smile. Nothing like the warm, sisterly affection she had pretended for 3 decades. You want the truth? Fine. The truth is that Harold should have left this hotel to me. I was the one who found this property. I was the one who convinced our father to invest. Harold just married the right woman and took all the credit. Harold built this hotel from nothing. Harold got lucky. He married a pretty girl who was willing to work 18-hour days while he played golf with investors. Lorraine stood up and walked to the window. I was supposed to be his partner. That was the deal we made when we were kids. We were going to build an empire together. But then you came along, and suddenly I was just the sister, the helper, the one who got a salary instead of a stake. Harold gave you 10% of the company. 10%. Of a hotel that was worth nothing when he gave it to me. She turned to face me. Do you know what 10% of nothing is, Ruth? Nothing. I watched this place grow from a rundown bed and breakfast to a $50 million property, and all I ever got was 10%. So you decided to steal the rest. I decided to take what was owed to me. Her voice was hard now, all pretense gone. And yes, I helped Derek. I gave him money when you cut him off. I told him you were being unreasonable, because you were. He was your son, Ruth. Your flesh and blood. And you chose this hotel over him. I chose to keep what Harold built, what we built together. You chose to control everything, just like you always have. The perfect wife, the perfect widow, the perfect businesswoman. Lorraine laughed. Do you know what Derek said when he found out you were the hotel owner? He said, "Of course she is. Mom never could let go of anything." I thought about that, about the choices I had made, about the years I had spent running this hotel, building it into something Harold would have been proud of, about the price I had paid, the relationships sacrificed, the moments missed, the loneliness that came with being the one in charge. Where's the money, Lorraine? What money? The $4.7 million. Where did it go? She hesitated. Just for a second. Gone. Investments that didn't pan out. Debts that had to be paid. Life is expensive when you're trying to keep up with people who were born rich. And Derek's $2.3 million? Where did that go? Another hesitation. Longer this time. He made some bad decisions. Gambling, bad business partners, the usual. The usual. I opened another folder. I have records from 3 different casinos. Derek has been banned from all of them for card counting, but he kept playing at underground games, the kind where losing means more than just losing money. I don't know anything about that. You co-signed a loan for him, 18 months ago, from a company in Miami that doesn't appear in any business registry. I pushed the document across the desk. That company is owned by people who break legs when payments are late, Lorraine. Is that what you want for your nephew? A pair of broken legs? Lorraine's face went pale. I didn't know. He said it was for a business venture. He said what you wanted to hear. Just like you told me what I wanted to hear for 30 years. I stood up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over your 10% of the hotel to me. You're going to repay every dollar you stole. I don't care how long it takes or what you have to sell. And you're going to tell Derek the truth. What truth? The truth about his father. Lorraine went still. Completely, absolutely still. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I walked to my desk and pulled out one more document, a letter, yellowed with age, written in Harold's careful handwriting. Harold told me before he died. He told me everything. About the affair, about the pregnancy, about the deal you made with him to keep it quiet. Ruth, Derek isn't Harold's son. He's yours and Harold's. I set the letter on the desk. You had an affair with your own brother, and when you got pregnant, you made him pay for the rest of his life. Lorraine's mask didn't just crack this time. It shattered. He told you? On his deathbed. He couldn't die with the secret anymore. I felt the old pain rising, the grief I had buried for 3 years. He said he was sorry. He said it happened before we were married, that it was a mistake, that he never touched you again after that night. He said he had spent 30 years trying to make it right, and you believed him? I believed he was a flawed man who made a terrible choice when he was young. I believed he spent his whole life trying to be better than that choice. I picked up the letter. I also believed that Derek deserved to know the truth about where he came from. You can't tell him. It would destroy him. What do you think yesterday destroyed? He stood in my hotel and called me a beggar. He let his fiancée mock me in front of 200 people. He has spent 8 years hating me because you told him I was the villain. I put the letter down. He deserves to know why you really helped him, why you really wanted him to hate me. Because if he loved me, if he stayed close to me, he might have found out the truth on his own. Lorraine was crying now, real tears, or something that looked like them. I never wanted to hurt him. He's my son, my only child. Then act like his mother. Tell him the truth. Help him get out of the mess you helped him make. I walked to the door and opened it. You have 48 hours. After that, I go to the police with everything I have. The theft, the fraud, the forged signatures, all of it. Ruth, please. 48 hours, Lorraine. That's more mercy than you ever showed me. She left. I closed the door and sat down at my desk, suddenly exhausted. The letter was still there, Harold's handwriting blurring through my tears. He had told me the truth. After 30 years of marriage, on the last night of his life, he had finally told me the truth. I had held his hand while he cried, while he begged me to forgive him, while he asked me to take care of Derek even though Derek wasn't really mine. He's your son too, Harold had said. You raised him. You loved him. Biology doesn't change that. But biology had changed everything. Because Lorraine had spent 30 years holding that secret over Harold's head, using it to extract money and favors, and a stake in the company that should have been mine alone. And when Harold died, she had used it to turn Derek against me, feeding him lies, telling him I was the one who had stolen his inheritance, when all along it was her. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Derek wants to talk. He's in the lobby. I looked at the letter one more time. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the drawer. Some truths had to wait. Others couldn't wait any longer. I texted back, send him up. It was time to face my son, my nephew, the boy I had raised and lost and might never truly get back. But I had to try, because that's what mothers did, even when the child wasn't really theirs. Derek walked into my office like a man walking to his own execution. Gone was the arrogant groom from yesterday, the one who had called me a beggar in front of 200 guests. In his place was someone I barely recognized, pale, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he'd had on at the wedding. Mom, he stood in the doorway, hands shoved in his pockets. Can I come in? Sit down. He sat. I watched him fidget with his cufflinks. Harold's cufflinks, I realized. The ones I had given Derek for his 18th birthday. Back when I still believed he would grow into a man his father would be proud of. I talked to Vanessa, he said. She's gone. Took her things from the hotel and left this morning. Her father is threatening to sue me for emotional distress. Are you surprised? No, he laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not surprised about anything anymore. Turns out I've been the last to know about everything in my own life. What did Lorraine tell you? His jaw tightened. She told me that she's been stealing from you for years. That she used the money to pay my debts. That she's the reason I never had to face the consequences of my own decisions. Is that all she told you? Derek looked up at me. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. She told me Harold wasn't my father. He couldn't finish the sentence. She told you the truth. The truth. He stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. The truth is that my whole life has been a lie. My father wasn't my father. My aunt is my mother. My mother. He turned to face me. What are you exactly? What was I to you? You were my son. You still are. How can you say that? After what I did yesterday. After what I said. Because I raised you. Because I fed you and clothed you and sat up with you when you were sick. Because I loved you even when you made it impossible to love you. I stood up and walked toward him. Biology doesn't make a family, Derek. Choice does. And I chose you every single day for 32 years. But Harold? Harold made a mistake. One night, one terrible decision, when he was young and stupid and drunk. He spent the rest of his life trying to make up for it. I touched his arm. He loved you. Whatever else you might think about him, that was never a lie. Derek pulled away. He lied to me my whole life. He protected you. So did I. So did Lorraine, in her own twisted way. I sat back down. The question isn't what we did 30 years ago. The question is what you're going to do now. What am I supposed to do? I owe $2 million to people who want to kill me. My fiancé left me. My aunt, my mother, is probably going to prison. And the woman I thought was my mother owns the hotel where I just humiliated myself in front of everyone I know. You could start by apologizing. I'm sorry. Not to me. To Tyler. To the staff who had to clean up your mess yesterday. To Oliver, who had to watch his grandmother get called a beggar. Derek flinched. Oliver, Tyler's son. Your nephew, Or your cousin, I suppose, depending on how you want to count it. I pulled out a chair. Sit down, Derek. We have a lot to talk about. He sat. For the next hour, I told him everything. About Lorraine's theft. About the money she had funneled to him. About the debts he owed and the people he owed them to. About the plan Lorraine had concocted to get me to sell the hotel. A plan that would have left everyone rich except me. I didn't know, Derek said when I finished. About the theft. About any of it. Lorraine just said you were being difficult, that you were sitting on millions of dollars while your own son struggled, and you believed her. I wanted to believe her. It was easier than believing I had failed on my own. He looked down at his hands. I'm not a good person, Mom. I've made terrible decisions. I've hurt people. I've hurt you. Yes, you have. So why are you telling me all this? Why not just let me sink? I thought about that question. I had asked it myself 1,000 times over the past 3 years. Why keep fighting for someone who didn't want to be fought for? Why keep loving someone who seemed determined to be unlovable? Because Harold asked me to, I finally said. On the night he died, he asked me to take care of you, to protect you from Lorraine, from yourself, from the consequences of his own sins. I met his eyes. I promised him I would try, even after everything, even after everything. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Vanessa left this. Said she didn't want anything that reminded her of me. He opened the box. Inside was an engagement ring, a vintage piece, Art Deco, with a central diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires. I recognize it. It was grandmother's. Lorraine gave it to me when I proposed. I stared at the ring. I knew that ring. I had last seen it on Lorraine's finger 10 years ago at Harold's 60th birthday party. That ring belonged to your grandmother, Harold's mother. She left it to Lorraine when she died. I took the box from his hands. She had no right to give it away. It was supposed to stay in the family. I thought, Lorraine said it was hers to give. Lorraine has been saying a lot of things that weren't true. I closed the box and set it on my desk. This ring is worth about $40,000. Not enough to clear your debts, but it's a start. I can't take money from you. You're not taking it. You're selling what's rightfully part of Harold's estate. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a business card. This is a jeweler I trust. He'll give you a fair price. The money goes toward your debt, not toward anything else. Mom? And then you're going to get a job. A real job. Not whatever schemes Lorraine has been funding. Tyler needs help at the hotel. We're always looking for people who aren't afraid of hard work. You want me to work here? After what I did? I want you to earn your place, like I did, like your father did. I stood up. You can stay in one of the staff rooms for now. Minimum wage, no special treatment. If you can prove yourself, if you can show me you're serious about changing, then we'll talk about what comes next. Derek stared at me like I had just offered him a lifeline, which, I supposed, I had. Why would you do this for me? Because you're my son, because I made a promise to your father, and because, I paused, choosing my words carefully, because I know what it's like to hit bottom and have no one to help you back up. I had Harold, you have me. He stood up slowly. For a moment, I thought he might hug me. Instead, he just nodded. His eyes bright with tears he was trying not to shed. I'll talk to Tyler. About the job. Good. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. Mom, the thing I said yesterday, about the beggar. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. I held up my hand before he could protest. That's okay. You were angry, and you were wrong. But you were honest. That's more than Lorraine ever gave me. I'm sorry. I know. Now go find Tyler. There's work to be done. He left. I sat alone in my office, looking at the ring box on my desk. Harold's mother's ring, a family heirloom passed down through generations, given away by a woman who had never truly been part of the family at all. I picked up the phone and dialed Marcus Webb. Marcus, I need you to find out something for me. Lorraine's accounts, the ones she used to steal from the hotel. I want to know if there's anything else missing, anything personal, jewelry, artwork, anything that might have belonged to Harold. I'll start looking right away, Mrs. Bennett. Thank you, Marcus. And one more thing. Yes, ma'am? Keep an eye on Derek. He's going to be working here for a while. I want to know if he's really trying to change, or if he's just looking for another angle. Understood. I hung up and walked to the window. The gardens were being watered, the grounds crew going about their morning routines. In a few hours, the hotel would be buzzing with guests and staff and all the ordinary chaos of a Thursday afternoon. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. The family I thought I knew had turned out to be something else entirely. The son I had raised was a stranger. The sister-in-law I had trusted was a thief. And the husband I had mourned was a man I had never fully understood. I had 48 hours before I went to the police. 48 hours to decide what kind of justice I wanted and what kind of mercy I was willing to give. The ring box sat on my desk, catching the morning light. Some things could be recovered. Some things were lost forever. I was still figuring out which was which. Marcus found more than jewelry. He found a storage unit in Lorraine's name, rented 3 months after Harold's funeral, filled with things I had assumed were lost or donated. She's been collecting, Mrs. Bennett, for years. Marcus spread the inventory list across my desk. Harold's golf trophies, your mother-in-law's china, artwork from the hotel's original collection, even some of the furniture from your personal suite. I scanned the list. My wedding china, Harold's first dollar, framed. The painting of the hotel that had hung in our bedroom for 25 years. A gift from a local artist who had stayed here on her honeymoon. How did she get all this without anyone noticing? Slowly, one piece at a time, over the course of several years. She would tell the staff that you wanted something moved to storage, or that an item was being sent out for repair. Marcus shook his head. She was patient. I'll give her that. Patient enough to wait until I was dead to sell it all. That's what it looks like. Some of these pieces are already listed with auction houses, under a different name, of course. I set down the list. Contact the auction houses. Tell them the items are stolen property. I want everything returned. Already in progress, but Mrs. Bennett, there's something else. He handed me another document. A life insurance policy, taken out in my name, with Lorraine as the sole beneficiary. She forged your signature, Marcus said. The policy was activated 2 years ago. If anything had happened to you, she would have collected $5 million. I stared at the document. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was preparing to profit from my death. I think we should involve the police now. This goes beyond theft. I thought about it. About Lorraine's face when she'd left my office yesterday. The calculation behind her tears. About Derek, working his first shift in the hotel kitchen, trying to rebuild something from the ashes of his old life. About Oliver, my grandson, who didn't understand why his grandmother had been called names at a party. Not yet. I want to give Derek a chance to process everything before Lorraine is arrested. With respect, Mrs. Bennett, she's dangerous. This policy, I know what it means. I stood up and walked to the window. But Derek just found out his whole life was a lie. His aunt is his mother. His father wasn't his father. The woman he trusted has been stealing from everyone he loves. I turned back to Marcus. He needs time. A few more days won't change anything. If she runs, she won't run. She thinks she still has leverage. She thinks the family secret is enough to keep me quiet. I smiled grimly. She doesn't know that I've already told Derek the truth. Marcus nodded slowly. What about the people Derek owes money to? The ones in Miami? I've made arrangements. An anonymous payment to buy some time. Derek doesn't need to know about that yet. You're protecting him, even after everything he did. I'm protecting the chance that he might become someone worth protecting. I picked up the insurance policy. Make copies of everything. Store them somewhere safe. And Marcus, thank you for everything. It's my job, Mrs. Bennett. It's more than that, and we both know it. He left. I sat alone with the insurance policy, reading and rereading the forged signature that was supposed to be mine. 2 years ago, Lorraine had decided I was worth more dead than alive. 2 years ago, while I was grieving Harold, while I was trying to keep the hotel running, while I was wondering why my oldest son wouldn't return my calls, my sister-in-law was planning my murder. Not directly, perhaps, Lorraine was too smart for that. But an accident could be arranged. A fall down the stairs. A medication error. 1,000 small deaths that would look natural to anyone who wasn't paying attention. I had been paying attention. Even when I didn't know what I was looking for, some part of me had known that something was wrong. That's why I had started digging into the accounts. That's why I had hired the private accountant. That's why I had kept Marcus close, trusted him with secrets I didn't trust to anyone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Derek finished his first shift. Didn't complain once. Kitchen staff says he's a hard worker. I smiled. It was a small thing, but it was something. Another text. Lorraine is in the lobby, demanding to see you. Should I call security? I typed back, send her up, but have Marcus wait outside my door. 5 minutes later, Lorraine walked in. She looked worse than she had yesterday. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually immaculate hair slightly disheveled, her hands shaking as she sat down across from me. You told him, she said. You told Derek everything. I told him the truth, something you should have done 30 years ago. You had no right. I had every right. He's my son too, Lorraine. Maybe not by blood, but by everything else that matters. I leaned forward. Did you think I would just let it go? After what you did? After what you planned to do? Her face changed, just slightly. I don't know what you mean. The insurance policy. The one with my forged signature. Lorraine went pale. That was just, Harold suggested. Harold has been dead for 3 years. He didn't suggest anything. I pulled out the document and set it on the desk. This was taken out 2 years ago, long after Harold was gone. Long after you started planning whatever accident was supposed to kill me. I would never... You would. You did. The only reason I'm still alive is because I figured out you were stealing before you figured out how to kill me without getting caught. Lorraine stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're making accusations without any proof. I have plenty of proof. The forged signature, the storage unit full of stolen property, the bank transfers, the emails. I stood up too, meeting her eyes. I have enough to put you away for 20 years, Lorraine. Maybe more, if the insurance fraud counts as attempted murder. You wouldn't. Think about Derek. Think about what it would do to him. I am thinking about Derek. I'm thinking that the best thing for him is to see you face the consequences of what you've done. To understand that actions have consequences. That you can't lie and steal your way through life without eventually paying the price. Ruth, please. You have until tomorrow morning. Turn yourself into the police. Confess to everything. If you do that, I'll ask the prosecutor to be lenient. I'll tell them you cooperated. And if I don't, then I release everything to the press, the theft, the fraud, the affair with Harold, the insurance policy. I walked to the door and opened it. Your choice, Lorraine, just like it's always been. She walked past me without another word. Marcus was waiting in the hallway, his face carefully neutral. Escort her out, I said, and make sure she doesn't take anything on the way. Yes, ma'am. I closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The confrontation had taken more out of me than I wanted to admit. 30 years of family, 30 years of trust, all of it crumbling like sandcastles in the tide. But it wasn't over yet. There was still Derek to think about. Still Tyler and Oliver. Still the hotel. The business Harold and I had built together. The legacy that was supposed to outlast us both. I walked to my desk and pulled out a piece of hotel stationery. I needed to write a letter. Not to Lorraine. That bridge was burned beyond repair. But to Derek. To the son who wasn't my son, but who I had loved anyway. I wanted him to understand. Not to forgive. That was too much to ask. But to understand why I had done what I had done. Why I had kept Harold's secret. Why I had let Lorraine stay in our lives. Why I had never stopped hoping that someday, somehow, we could be a family again. The words came slowly at first, then faster. An hour later, I had written 10 pages. The story of my marriage. The story of my grief. The story of a woman who had lost everything and rebuilt herself from the wreckage. I sealed the letter and wrote Derek's name on the envelope. Tomorrow, I would give it to him. Tomorrow, I would let him decide what kind of relationship we would have going forward. But tonight, I had one more task to complete. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Savannah Police Department. How may I direct your call? Detective Morrison, please. Tell him it's Ruth Bennett from the Magnolia Grand. One moment. I waited, the letter heavy in my hand. Some justice couldn't wait until morning. Detective Morrison arrived at the hotel just after midnight. He was a tall man, gray-haired, with the tired eyes of someone who had seen too much of the worst in people. I had known him for 15 years. He had been the one to investigate a series of thefts at the hotel back when Harold was still alive. Mrs. Bennett. He sat down in my office, declining the coffee I offered. Your message said this was urgent. It is. I handed him the folder I had prepared. I need to report a crime. Several crimes, actually. He opened the folder and began reading. His expression didn't change, but I saw his eyebrows rise slightly as he turned each page. This is extensive, he said when he finished. Embezzlement? Forgery? Insurance fraud? You're sure about all of this? I have documentation for everything. Bank records, sworn statements, audio recordings. I paused, and I have reason to believe my life may be in danger. The insurance policy. Yes. $5 million, with my forged signature. Lorraine Bennett has been stealing from me for years. I think she was planning to make sure she could collect. Detective Morrison closed the folder. Have you confronted her about this? Yes, earlier today. I gave her until tomorrow morning to turn herself in, but I don't think she will. Why not? Because she's desperate, and because she has nowhere else to go. I looked out the window at the city lights twinkling in the distance. Detective, I'm not asking for your protection. I have security here, good security, but I want this on record. If something happens to me, I want everyone to know who's responsible. Nothing is going to happen to you, Mrs. Bennett. We'll pick up Lorraine Bennett tonight. I'd prefer you wait until morning. Give her the chance to do the right thing. With respect, if she's as dangerous as you say, she's family. The word felt strange in my mouth. She was family. For 30 years, I thought she was my sister. I want to give her one last chance to show me she's not the monster I think she is. Detective Morrison studied me for a long moment. You're a more forgiving person than I am. I'm not forgiving. I'm just tired of hating. I stood up and walked him to the door. Tomorrow morning, Detective, 9 o'clock. If she hasn't turned herself in by then, you can arrest her wherever you find her. He nodded. I'll have officers stationed outside the hotel tonight, just in case. Thank you. After he left, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the halls of my hotel, past the rooms where guests slept peacefully, past the ballroom where my son had humiliated me just 3 days ago. The night staff nodded as I passed, accustomed to my late-night walks. I ended up in the garden, sitting on the bench Harold had placed there for our 20th anniversary. The magnolias were in bloom, their sweet scent filling the air. Harold had loved these gardens. He used to say they were the real heart of the hotel. Not the rooms or the restaurant, but this quiet space where people could sit and remember what mattered. Mom? I turned. Derek was walking toward me, still in his kitchen uniform, his face tired but somehow lighter than it had been. What are you doing up? I asked. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd take a walk. He sat down beside me. Is it okay if I join you? Of course. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the fountain and the distant sounds of the city. I read the letter, Derek finally said, the one you gave me at dinner, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to feel. He ran his hands through his hair. My whole life I thought I knew who I was. Derek Bennett, son of Harold and Ruth. Now I find out I'm Derek. What? The product of an affair? The secret everyone kept to protect me? The secret Harold kept to protect you, and me, and even Lorraine in a way. Why would he want to protect her? Because she was his sister. Because the scandal would have destroyed both of them. Because I hesitated. Because he felt responsible. He was older than her. He should have known better. He carried that guilt his entire life. Did you ever resent me, knowing what you knew? I didn't know. Not until the end. I touched his hand. Harold told me on his deathbed, 3 years ago, and even then, even knowing the truth, I never resented you. You were my son. You still are. How can you say that? After what I did? After what I said? Because love isn't something you earn. It's something you give. I turned to face him. I've made mistakes, Derek. I've been controlling. I've been stubborn. I've put this hotel before my family more times than I want to admit, but I never stopped loving you, even when you made it impossible. Derek's eyes were bright with tears. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything. I know. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about the question, about the years of silence, the cruel words, the betrayal, about the young man sitting beside me, broken and desperate and finally honest. I already have, I said. He hugged me then. The first real hug we'd shared in 8 years. I felt his shoulders shake with sobs, felt my own tears streaming down my face. In the garden Harold had planted, under the magnolias he had loved, we held each other and mourned everything we had lost. When we finally pulled apart, the sky was starting to lighten in the east. What happens now? Derek asked. With Lorraine? The police are coming this morning. She has until 9 o'clock to turn herself in. Will she? I don't know. I hope so. For her sake, if nothing else. And if she doesn't? Then she faces the consequences. The theft, the fraud, the insurance policy. All of it. Derek nodded slowly. She called me this morning, before my shift. She wanted me to help her leave town. What did you say? I said no. He looked at me. I said that if she ran, it would just make things worse. That the best thing she could do was face what she'd done and try to make amends. That was brave. It didn't feel brave. It felt like the hardest thing I've ever done. He stood up, brushing off his uniform. She's my mother, my biological mother, and I had to tell her I wouldn't help her escape justice. That's what growing up looks like, Derek. Making the hard choices, living with the consequences. Is that what you did? All those years? I tried. I didn't always succeed. I stood up too, stretching my tired legs. Come on, let's get some breakfast before the day starts. Tyler makes excellent pancakes. We walked back to the hotel together, the sun rising behind us. In a few hours, the police would come. Lorraine would either surrender or she wouldn't. Either way, our family would never be the same. But maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time for something new. In the kitchen, Tyler was already at the stove, Oliver playing at his feet. He looked up when we walked in, surprise and then pleasure crossing his face. Room for 2 more? I asked. Always. He pulled out plates, started cracking eggs. Derek, you want to help with the bacon? Derek walked to the stove, taking his place beside his brother. I sat down at the table with Oliver in my lap, watching my sons cook breakfast together for the first time in nearly a decade. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. Through the window, I could see the gardens, the magnolias, the hotel Harold and I had built together. This was what he had wanted. Not the money, not the success, but this. Family. Together. Whole. We weren't whole yet. We might never be, but we were trying, and that was enough. For now, that was enough. Lorraine didn't turn herself in. At 9:15, Detective Morrison called to tell me they had found her at the Savannah airport, trying to board a flight to Mexico with 2 suitcases full of jewelry. My jewelry, Harold's jewelry, family heirlooms she had been hoarding for years. She's in custody, he said. She's asking to speak with you. No, Mrs. Bennett. I gave her a chance. She made her choice. I looked out my office window at the gardens below, where Oliver was chasing butterflies under Tyler's watchful eye. I have nothing more to say to her. She says she has information about Derek, about things she hasn't told anyone. Then she can tell it to her lawyer. I hung up. For a moment, I felt a pang of something, guilt, maybe, or grief for the relationship we had never really had. Then I looked at the photo on my desk, the one of Harold and me on our wedding day, and the feeling passed. Lorraine had made her choices. Now she would live with them. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified twice, once about the theft, once about the insurance policy. Derek testified too. his voice steady as he described how his aunt had manipulated him for years, feeding him lies about me, using his anger to justify her own crimes. Lorraine was convicted on 12 counts: embezzlement, fraud, forgery, and attempted insurance fraud. The judge sentenced her to 15 years, with possibility of parole after 8. She didn't look at me when they led her away. I didn't look at her either. Afterward, the reporters gathered outside the courthouse, shouting questions about family betrayal and hotel fortunes. I ignored them all, walking to the car where Tyler and Derek were waiting. "How do you feel?" Tyler asked as we drove away. "Tired, relieved." I watched the city pass by outside the window. "Ready for it to be over." "Is it over?" "The trial is. The rest of it—" I shook my head. "The rest of it will take longer." Derek was quiet in the back seat. He had been quiet for most of the trial, processing everything he had learned about the woman who had raised him in secret, who had loved him in her twisted way, who had used that love as a weapon. "Derek?" I turned to look at him. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." He met my eyes. "I think I will be. Eventually. That's all any of us can hope for." 6 months later, I stood in the ballroom of the Magnolia Grand, watching my staff prepare for the biggest event of the year. Not a wedding this time, a celebration. The hotel's 30th anniversary, marking 3 decades since Harold and I had opened the doors for the first time. The room was filled with flowers, magnolias, of course, and roses and lilies and orchids. The crystal chandeliers sparkled. The tables were set with my best china, the china Lorraine had tried to steal, now returned to its rightful place. "Mrs. Bennett?" Derek appeared at my elbow, dressed in the hotel's management uniform. He had been promoted twice since starting in the kitchen, working his way up through sheer determination and a willingness to do whatever was needed. "The caterers have a question about the appetizers." "Handle it. You know what I like." He smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen from him in years. "Yes, ma'am." He walked away, and I felt a swell of pride that had nothing to do with blood or biology. My son, the one I had chosen, the one I had raised, the one who was finally becoming the man I had always hoped he could be. Tyler found me a few minutes later, Oliver holding his hand. "Grandma!" Oliver ran to me and I scooped him up, ignoring the protests of my aging back. "There's gonna be cake? So much cake. All the cake you can eat. Yay." Tyler watched us with a soft smile. He's been asking about the party all week. I think he's more excited than any of us. As he should be. This is his hotel too someday. I set Oliver down and took his hand. "Want to help Grandma check on the flowers?" "Yeah." We walked through the ballroom together, my grandson pointing out every bloom, every sparkle, every detail that caught his eye. I thought about Harold, about how much he would have loved this moment, his hotel, thriving, his grandsons together, his legacy, continuing. The guests began arriving at 7, old friends, business partners, employees past and present. They came to celebrate the hotel, but also, I realized, to celebrate us, the family that had survived scandal and betrayal and come out the other side. Derek gave the opening toast. He stood at the podium where 6 months ago he had called me a beggar, and he spoke about family and forgiveness and second chances. "I made mistakes," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "I hurt people I loved. I believed lies because they were easier than the truth." He looked at me. "But my mother, Ruth Bennett, she gave me something I didn't deserve. She gave me a chance to make things right, to prove that I could be better than my worst moments." He raised his glass, to the Magnolia Grand, to 30 years of excellence, and to the woman who made it all possible, Ruth Bennett. The room echoed with cheers. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. Later, after the speeches and the dinner and the dancing, I found myself alone in the garden. The same bench where Derek and I had sat that night, under the same magnolias Harold had planted so many years ago. The party sounds drifted from the ballroom: laughter, music, the clink of glasses. Inside, my family was celebrating. Derek and Tyler, side by side for the first time in a decade. Oliver, stuffed with cake, falling asleep in his father's arms. The staff who had become like family. The friends who had stood by me through everything. I had lost so much. A husband, a sister-in-law. Years with my son that could never be recovered. But I had gained something too. A family that was honest with each other. A hotel that was thriving. A future that for the first time in years looked bright. Mom? Derek sat down beside me. He had taken off his jacket, loosened his tie. He looked tired but peaceful. Great speech, I said. I meant every word. I know. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the fountain and the distant music. I got a letter today, Derek said. From Lorraine. I tensed. What did she want? To apologize, to explain, I don't know, make me understand why she did what she did. He shook his head. I threw it away without finishing it. Good. Is it? She's still the woman who gave birth to me. Doesn't she deserve? She deserves exactly what she got. 15 years to think about her choices. I touched his arm. Derek, you can't spend your life trying to understand people who don't want to be understood. Some people are just broken. Some people break themselves, and then they try to break everyone around them. Like me? Not like you. I turned to face him. You were lost. You made terrible decisions, but you never stopped being capable of change. That's the difference. Lorraine, she didn't want to change. She wanted the world to change for her. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm glad you didn't give up on me. I'm glad you gave me a reason not to. He hugged me then, the second real hug in 6 months. I held on to him, my son, my boy, the child I had chosen and raised and fought for. I love you, Mom. I love you too. We walked back to the party together, arm in arm. Tyler was waiting at the door with Oliver, who had woken up just enough to demand one more dance. Come on, Grandma, he said, tugging my hand. Dance with me. I'm too old for dancing. No, you're not. You're the prettiest grandma ever. I laughed and let him lead me to the dance floor. Tyler took one hand, Derek took the other, and we danced together, awkwardly, laughing, stepping on each other's feet while the party swirled around us. This was my family, imperfect, scarred, rebuilt from the wreckage of old lies, but real and mine. The music swelled. Oliver giggled. Derek and Tyler caught each other's eyes and smiled. Outside, the magnolias bloomed in the darkness, their scent drifting through the open windows. Harold's flowers, Harold's hotel, Harold's family, my family now. I closed my eyes and let the music carry me, surrounded by the people I loved, in the place I had built, in the life I had chosen. It wasn't the life I had planned. It wasn't the family I had expected, but it was mine. Every complicated, beautiful, hard-won piece of it. And that was more than enough.